Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking time to join us today. Today, Chris and I will spend some time discussing some of the challenges we all face or have faced in the past related to compliance training. Hopefully, you will learn some strategies you can use to make compliance, dare I say it, a bit more fun. My name is Evan Parks, the Principal Learning Strategy Consultant at Exonify. In my role at Exonify, I help our clients develop and execute learning strategies that support their organizations. A little about me. I have spent 30 years of retail experience in operations, HR, learning and development, from working in and managing stores to leading corporate functions like org effectiveness and learning and development. So I know a little bit about this subject from both sides of the fence. The last couple of years, one of the areas I've been working with on Exonify's customers in a variety of industries is helping them get more measurable results from compliance training. Well, that's enough about me. Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself and get us started.
Great, thanks, Evan. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Crummer, and I'm a Principal Solutions Consultant here at Exonify. And I'm based in beautiful Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I work closely with our sales team to highlight the Exonify platform to our prospects. I conduct product demonstrations, detail integration, deployment solutions within the pre-sale side of the organization. Over my last 20 plus years of my career, I've worked closely in the contact center and retail space. My last number of years here at Exonify, I've expanded my role within the learning ecosystem, and I'm excited to be co-hosting today's breakout session with Evan and everyone on the line. Evan noted we're here to talk about compliance. I think he said the word fun, right? How can compliance training be fun? Yeah, Evan, when we talked about that, I'm like, how are we gonna make training fun around compliance? We'll find out, right? So let's go through and we'll understand about, what we can learn about modernizing and having, high levels of engagement within a learning commitment. So I want everybody to kind of think back to the early days of you getting your first job. I remember one of my first ones at a fast food outlet. I won't necessarily say the name to protect the innocent. And it's one of my first jobs when I was in high school. Having our frontline managers tell us about different kinds of certification, hearing words like, you need to do it or you'll get written up. We never understood the why and feeling it's more for the company than it is our own well-being. Those jobs where the manager said to you, hey, Chris, this is the way that you need to handle, cleaning up of the grease in the fryer. There's a certain way to do it. And, I expected it and thought of it more as for the company than my own protection or my own safety. So yes, compliance training. Based on our research, we find that most of our frontline employees training is all about compliance-related information, from safety-related material, harassment, workplace diversity to finance and insurance regulatory needs. Requirements are constantly changing. Organizations expect their employees to adapt quickly. No better example than to the pandemic we're all facing today. Typically courses are overstuffed with irrelevant details. They're long and cumbersome. With many departments in an organization trying to get their message bubbled higher than others, from HR to sales to marketing, they all want their employees to say and do specific actions.
The problems that we have today in compliance training is no different than it was in the past. I can tell you from experience. And I can also tell you that it's not very different from industry to industry. So if you work in retail, if you work in healthcare, if you work in financial services, the problems that we face with making it exciting, like Chris talked about, is no different. So maybe in the past it was all done through a classroom setting, or using workbooks, and today everything is online. Some people are doing it on their phones, but the problems still exist the same way. When I started my first job many, many moons ago, we didn't have online for sure. So I was handed a workbook that had about at least 100 pages, and I think there was front and back pages if I remember correctly. And the manager told me, they said, remove the signature pages, and they actually color coded them different. So they were blue. They said, pull those blue pages out, go ahead and sign them and give them back to me, right? So basically the manager just had me just sign off on the whole, 12-week training program or whatever it was supposed to be, and turn it all in. So I said, okay, what do I do with the rest? And the answer was, read it if you want, toss it in the compactor. And I was like, what? Toss it in the compactor? I'm 16. I was just told I'm not allowed to use the compactor according to this documents that I just signed. So early on, I knew where that company stood related to compliance training or any training at all. And then, fast forward almost 25 years, and my brother applied for a job in a retail organization, and he went through the training, and they had online training program, and he watched a bunch of videos, as he described it, on proper disposal of hazardous materials. And he just finished it. The manager said, hurry up and do those, before you can get on a register or whatever. And then he sees a bottle of bleach fall off the shelf, and he's prepared to go get a hazardous cleanup kit and do all the things that he just learned in the video. And the manager says, no, I got this, don't worry about it. And they go over there with paper towels and a trash can, and just soak it up, toss it in the trash can, move on. So in this case, you have an example where we didn't express the behaviors in the store, that we just trained the person on. So right away, he got the understanding of this training really doesn't matter, because they don't do it. So, there's just another scenario of, what an employee thinks when they see that behavior. So is it more about checking the box, or is it really about training behaviors? Sometimes it's about training the box, checking the box, but in other cases, there are behaviors that you want people to do to stay safe. So Chris, what is it that you hear from employees about compliance training?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the top things that we hear from our customers and prospects, that it's hard to fit training in their daily workflow. It's tough from, you think about devices, or just the time allocation, right? Most of the time they don't understand the why. Evan's going to talk about that in a little bit, but Evan, your question to me about those challenges, it's outside of having their bosses chase them down, employees don't even know why, right? They don't even know if they have outstanding compliance training. Rarely is there actually time set aside for our frontline teams to actually do their training. Engagement is typically very low with most learning management systems. Most of the time, employees that do log into the LMS find it clunky. They find it overwhelming, or they find it frustrating to navigate. Then you compound the problem with technology, right? We know that a lot of organizations have legacy or outdated devices to even conduct the training. How many companies still have a Windows XP computer in the break room? I know we're not as live as we want to be, but hopefully there's a few smiles out there, right? I know that those computers are out there, right? And they're barely connected to the internet. What's the Wi-Fi availability? Security concerns? Bring your own device. Obviously, that is a big one today. I realize, whether that's a province by province or state by state governance. You got labor laws, data usage. Think about all those challenges that we're faced today with the pandemic. Who wants to share a keyboard or a tablet with someone else? Case in point with finance and insurance, right? So F&I compliance, it's necessary. Due to constraints and requirements of products, and advisor knowledge can be dated very quickly. Turnover is high, right? That's one of the other big challenges that happens. Investors are becoming more knowledgeable about finance and insurance options, leading to more complex conversations for advisors. Due to the drop in markets, advisors are fielding more calls from concerned clients. Customer service matters more than ever, and that's really coming back to some of the those challenges that as I harp on the F&I space. So alongside individual contributors, Evan, what are the impact to frontline management?
Well, managers have similar issues actually to start with. They don't know why the training is required. So there's definitely a clear understanding of why the employee doesn't know why. If the managers don't know why, then they're definitely not going to be able to communicate that. So I think that the breakdown happens, either from corporate to the manager, or maybe people in corporate don't know why the training is even happening. So there's a breakdown in understanding the purpose, the why, and the language really has just become just get it done. I heard a manager one time tell an employee that it was required, and the employee asked back, they said, well, by who? And the manager said, the government requires it. And, this employee was pretty well informed, and he came back and said, no, it isn't. The company just wants to be able to protect themselves and fire me if I get hurt using this equipment. It's not really required by the government. Hearing that really makes you stop and think about what employees think about a company that treats them like that. Something like that is not, even a second thought on the front line today. It happens every day out there. If you don't think so, you're kidding yourself. But what it does to the company brand is long lasting. It's not just that one event that happens. So, managers see training in general as just another thing on their plate to chase after, but usually it's not the most important thing, really, right? Let's be truthful about it. There's other things that are important until that gets raised to be the most important. These managers are responsible for sales, store conditions, faster call resolution, more productive workforces, and the list goes on and on. Not usually thought about are the responsibilities to hire another person. So if I don't train this person correctly, I'm actually making more work for myself because I'm going to get another trainee that now I have to spend more time training. And it appears like we don't care about them if we don't give them the right training, and a lot of times that causes the turnover of that role. Another reason we have to do this better is, so managers don't address the training until someone holds them accountable to do it. And what that leads to is somebody, their boss. So if I'm a manager, I maybe report to an area manager or a district manager, and they've gotten an email or a phone call from somebody that says, your store has this many people that haven't done it, or your location has this many people that haven't done it. And then, they usually tell them something like, you're going to be held accountable to this. You must get it done. You have to get it done. So right away, that feeds into the manager to say, okay, now I'm going to go tell my employees, hey, you have to get this done now. And it's going to lead to threats and telling people they're going to get fired if they don't get it done. The training they have to complete, they don't know why. And now you're telling me I have to do it or you're going to fire me. Really, everybody just leaves this with a bad feeling in their mind and, bad taste in the mouth about compliance training and training in general. It's definitely not planned. It's not something that, they expected. It's just something that's there. So Chris and I thought it'd be fun to show you a little skit that may be very familiar to you about a manager and an employee interacting about compliance training. Break things up a little bit here. Everyone loves a good role play, but since Chris and I are located around 1,300 miles from each other, we had to improvise a little bit. So Chris is up in Canada and I'm in Florida, so pretty far away from each other.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead, Evan.
Chris, you go ahead and tell them a little bit more about the video.
Yeah, I think what you'll see is, first of all, we spared no expense on the development, on the actors and the voiceover. So I think this is really going to bring together the challenge and frustration both for the employee and the manager as you hear the professionalism of Evan and I playing the employee and the manager. So let's take a look.
Hey Chris, glad I found you. You need to complete the anti-harassment compliance training as soon as possible. It's really important.
Yeah, no problem. I'll do it later today.
Did you complete the training?
I ran out of time, but I'll do it tomorrow for sure.
Don't forget to do the training, Chris.
I won't, promise.
Chris, you are running out of time to do your training.
You'll never find me here.
Chris, training now.
I hope you all enjoyed that. Got a smile or even a laugh on the reality of it. I personally hate chasing people or running too fast in general. But I'm also sure that you noticed that no gray hair in the video compared to Evan with the bald head, as noted. Yeah, right? We wanted to have a little bit of fun with it. Also, want to note the disclaimer here is that this isn't a representation of typical training designed by Exonify. What we want to do is have a little bit of fun to quickly convey our message today. So when we think about how we can fix or improve our challenges, right? Is how to focus on what are critical risks to a company, lead to optimizing and instilling a behavior change. And that's really one of the key parts that you'll hear Evan and I talk about is that behavior change, how it impacts your KPIs within an organization. Getting high levels of engagement, right? Having learning ingrained as a daily experience, ultimately developing a habit, right? Learning's never been a daily experience for employees, right? And it takes a while to develop a habit. So, there's a couple of things that we're going to highlight here over the latter part of our presentation that we can get. So, we have to start by understanding the actual compliance requirement. Right, Evan talked about at the beginning, is that ultimately there's a why. Why is it important for an employee to do something in particular? So many compliance programs, were started a long time ago. A lot has changed, right? So Evan, will provide further details on the why as we move forward.
Yeah, so you've heard us say why a lot. So people are always asking for tell us the why, and we can thank that today to Simon Sinek, who's out there talking about that, right? Like find your why. I think he's really great, and he's spot on. From 30 years of managing people, I can tell you that from personal experience, when people know the why, they'll do things. They'll actually execute on what you're looking for. So the to be honest with your managers and associates is really required by telling them what the reason why they have to do that training. So if you're in a state like California and harassment training is required to be 2 hours long, and there's really no other reason why it's required to be 2 hours, you can explain that and be honest and say the state of California requires this training to be 2 hours long. But in turn, there's content within this training that helps you. So tell them also how this can make it a better place to work. It'll help keep people feeling safe and respected at the workplace. Be a place where you can be proud to work because of this type of behavior. So, look for ways that the training helps them or their coworkers, not so much the company. When you tell people it's just, oh, this is gonna, this helps protect the company in case we get a lawsuit, that's not a motivation for people to take training. So most people react better to like the WIFM, what's in it for me, or what's in it for my teammates. So those are the things that we recommend you have as the why, the purpose for doing this. Does a frontline associate really care about the company and protecting that company? Probably not. So make the connection that will motivate them, which is really, what's the purpose for them? What are they going to get out of it? And how's it going to help their coworkers? So like in this case, it makes it a better place to work. The how you approach content Really, that's the next most important difference. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and I'm going to break it down a little bit more. So, 3 areas really we have is focus content, personalize, and then reinforce. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these things. Starting with breaking down content into smaller topics or sessions and removing content that's not critical. This is really step one. This can be things like the training has a storyline attached to it that tells you irrelevant facts. Just somebody thought it would be cute and fun to make it be, a storytelling event, when really you're just trying to drive home 2 or 3 basic topics, and irrelevant items that are just not related to the outcome that you're looking for. And the same thing with facts. If you stated a fact earlier in the training, there's no reason to repeat it. These are ways that you can shorten it. Concentrate on behaviors that will lead to the result. For an example, if you're being certified on a forklift and most injuries occur due to not wearing a seatbelt, let's say, I don't know if that's a fact or not, but let's say the seatbelt, not wearing it, is the actual issue. So wearing the seatbelt is the most important part of what we're teaching. But we may mention to wear a seatbelt in 2 seconds, right? Compared to spending a minute telling somebody how to put on a seatbelt, how to actually do the buckling itself. Be honest, people know how to wear a seatbelt. This is an everyday item. We wear them in cars. The point is we should be telling them more about why it's important to wear the seatbelt and the safety impacts of it. Those are the things that matter more than telling me how to wear a seatbelt. So that's what we mean by focusing in on the content. And the smaller topics, once you do that, now you have smaller topics. So you have forklift safety, and maybe you also have like pallet jacks in your stores or in your facilities, or high-lows, different pieces of equipment. So if you break down the training to just be focused on each one of those pieces of equipment in a small piece, maybe 2% of your workforce actually drives a forklift. So today, because you have it all in one big course, you train it to 25% of your workforce, because they're using pallet jacks and high-lows and different pieces of equipment that are similar. But they really only need to know about what they need to know. So now that you have these smaller topics, maybe you have one on a forklift, maybe you have one on a pallet jack, maybe you have one on a high-low. Now you can personalize that and assign that to the people who actually need it more specifically. People don't like training that has no relevance to their job. So as soon as you show them irrelevant content to them, they don't see the purpose for it. So, if you can't explain the why, then you probably shouldn't be delivering it to them as a good general rule. And then the last piece is, reinforcement. And not everybody has a tool to do reinforcement, but, Exonify, what we do to help people reinforce is it's a daily training system. So, we reinforce what matters. So you take that smaller piece of content, and then you identify within the smaller piece of content, what is the really most important things? And then you put that into a reinforcement program that people really go in and get more information on a daily basis. So they're constantly reminded of that behavior, and they actually make the behavior change. And rather than just doing it once a year or twice a year, spend a few minutes on topics that may, help them remember what to do on a daily basis. Chris, can you talk a little bit about how associate experience can look?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good transition here, because at the end of the day, right, is how can we improve the compliance experience so that it doesn't negatively impact people's perspective on the workplace learning. You don't want to waste any time or effort, right? How do you go beyond checking the box, as we heard by Evan earlier? So at the end of the day, what we want to do, right, is help instill as a continuous learning culture, right? Don't make learning boring and monotonous. Allowing content to be absorbed in quick, digestible segments, makes it less arduous for employees, right? Evan just highlighted that. provide greater probability of success in developing a continuous learning culture when content is short and sweet. The screenshot here that we're looking at, is an example of the ease of use an employee can experience. So, in fact, I'm actually going to start with what we think about as a daily learning environment, right? Have a platform that is intuitive and makes it easy for the employee know what to do. Right? We talked earlier about the cumbersome of, a lot of legacy learning management systems. Even if you got an employee to log in, they don't necessarily know exactly where to go. So daily training in this case here, is one of the main programs at Exonify. And basically at the end of the day, it reinforces information that instills, you guessed it, behavior change, right? I told you, Evan and I are going to talk about behavior change a lot throughout today's demonstration. So, in utilizing, artificial intelligence, and we have an adaptive algorithm that personalizes content for each and every one of the employees. So in this case here, today's learning is 3 questions that could be related to things like product knowledge, safety awareness, new policies and procedures, or reinforcing compliance-related content. Go figure, right? Why wait the 12 months like Evan talked about, right? Why wait that duration before presenting content again, right? Ongoing best practices around COVID, OSHA, WMIS, regulatory compliance, diversity, things like that are important to the organization. And again, creating those small pieces of information are important elements for you to convey during a training experience. One other point I'd make here is it needs to have executive sponsorship, right? Create a fun campaign around engagement. So, I think about some of, Exonify's customers, and one of our large-scale retailer, Foot Locker, they've created an amazing level of excitement by marketing the program and creating a buzz amongst the employees. They basically have a daily habit, and they refer to it as clock in, lace up, and hit the floor. The lace up part of that is the Foot Locker associate, utilizing a device to do their daily training. It's part of their daily routine, right? And it's created a continuous learning culture. I think one of the other parts when we think about training in the flow of work, right, is the ease of access. We mentioned earlier the challenges of devices. BYOD has every organization rethinking their strategy, right, and corporate policies. Linking with existing systems like point of sale terminals, right, or POSs, enterprise devices that mobilize a workforce, its processes, its productivity. So I think about things like, Zebra devices that are quite prominent in a lot of retail and supply chain distribution centers. As a further example, right, Exonify has, one of the largest home improvement organizations with over 130,000 employees, and they're allowing the access through these mobile handhelds as well as the POS system. Really, at the end of the day, what this is doing is it's fitting in the flow of their work. So remember how Evan and I talked at the beginning about making training fun? Well, you can utilize a variety of game mechanics. So, you don't want to necessarily make things all, shiny and fluffy, right? But at the end of the day, you still want to be able to, have a level of fun, right, as employees are going through, this daily training, right, developing a daily habit. So, things like creating friendly competitions, top performers, right? So that's one of the more popular game mechanics, and I've always referred to it as the smartest kid in the class. Even at times having game play. We got one of the other largest retailers in North America, and one of the games were turned off by accident. And there was almost some pandemonium, outright riots of employees not being able to access a very favorite game amongst the team. So, you know, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to, you know, play a fun game, you know, every once in a while? Rewards, right? That's another big important the game mechanic, right? End of the day, who doesn't want a coffee or an Apple or Amazon gift card? Maybe company swag, right? I like wearing my Exonify golf shirt because, you know what? I wanted it as a reward and it was free. How about a pizza party for the department? You know, where the boss is flipping the bill. You know, I think one of the other fun rewards that that we have, and this is actually here at Exonify, is that we have a reward for the prime parking spot. So we're headquartered in Waterloo, Ontario, so it's just west of Toronto, and during winter months, trekking through the snow and ice can be obviously a nuisance, right? Who wants to be able to do it? So our monthly reward is a parking spot right in front of the main office door. So as we transition from the learning side, right, is how do we make it, how do we make the employee feel more empowered to do their training? So, you know, if we look at this screen here as we move forward, it's crazy how Chris has now compliance training related to his daily learning effort. Kind of surprising, eh?
What a coincidence.
It's crazy how, you know, we've created this breakout session and there's a certification, right? Chris is feeling empowered at this point, and I like seeing my image here because I've got much better hair in that than I do here on camera. But you know, since this is ingrained as, you know, this employee's daily or habitual habit, right, is the fact that this certification here, and there's an example here of some age-restricted selling, right, making sure that you're checking ID for people that are buying, you know, cigarettes or alcohol, right? Important part, obviously, to the business, yes, right, but it's explaining in the importance of why it's important for the employee. So, you know, with employees using a system at almost the daily level, right, most of our customers have engagement around a voluntary participation rate of 83+%, right? Employees are feeling more empowered to actually do the training. You'll notice, as I said earlier, right, is that the experience here today is related to certification. You know, it's example related to age-restricted selling, but this could be PPE usage, could be diversity, could be the safety procedures earlier, like we talked about, OSHA or WMIS related training. I think back to a little bit of the game mechanics that that we just mentioned. Maybe reward them with even more points than the traditional programs. So there's basically the platform allows flexibility in adjusting the system to meet a company's specific need, right, and challenges, and basically enhancing the opportunity to, yes, change behavior. Even at Exonify, we actually eat our own dog food, or as much prefer to say, drink our own champagne. Our internal platform is called Dog Food, and one example of compliance training, and obviously a lot of relevancy to where we are today, is our internal safety teams at the company want us certified on how to work safely at the office, right? We're all transitioning back into the office. So from things like proper sanitation usage, social distancing, what's off limits, you know, to how do we conduct a meeting? You know, we get it in small doses, right? A few questions spaced out over time. You know, giving your frontline employees compliance training that's intuitive to complete, right? That's one of the other things that's important here, right? Yes, you get the completed checkbox, right? But they keep getting reinforced on key information to make sure that you know, your frontline employees are making the right decisions at the right time. So, you know, one of the other parts in here before I pass it on to Evan here is when we think about being able to even blend it into their regular onboarding, right? We haven't talked too much about, you know, new hires or upskilling employees that have moved from one to you know, one area. Maybe they moved from a peer to a leader, for example, right? Is that you can actually onboard it to give each employee, you know, a friendly introduction, maybe to your culture, right? For a new hire, for their systems and procedures. but while still making sure that the compliance box is being checked. And I'll relate to actually one of our large pharma customers in Merck, right? They ultimately wanted to reduce safety incidents by instilling a culture of safety awareness. So they want to be proactive and aware of the safety, right? They want to promote, consistent messaging of safety. They want to achieve high levels of employee engagement. Tie the metrics to tangible changes in employee behavior. And, it's one part that we won't get too much into our session today, but having the ROI gain of those behavior changes can actually be measured in the Exonify platform. And ultimately, some of their results, they've had an 80+% voluntary participation in the initial 12 months. Knowledge growth was off the charts across all the safety topics. Reduction in recordable incident rates, so the RIRs, and a decrease in lost time injury frequency. So, they campaigned, or the marketing team campaigned their Exonify program as safe by choice, right? So again, it's creating a personalized experience that you could present to your employees, in this case here, from an onboarding effort. So I'll pass it over here to Evan. He can highlight a little bit more now from the manager's point of view.
Thanks, Chris. That was a lot of great examples.
Yeah.
Really, sum things up and bring things into to the real world. And we talk about these little characters that we have up here now. So here's my character, which I am bald, but I don't have like my grandpa's balding head. But it's still pretty good representation there. So typical manager look with the clipboard, right?
Yeah.
So
I like the pens in the pocket, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The tie loosened up. I don't know if anybody even wears ties out there anymore, but yeah, it's good stuff. What managers really need is actually pretty simple to be able to manage certifications and make training in general easy. It's not very complicated. They just need to know, right? So they need to be informed of what people are doing and what people are due to complete. And we'll get to that in a second here. And they also need to know that the assignments are going to happen automatically. So, if you don't have a system today that auto renews, potentially you're forcing everybody through a compliance training on a certain month every year. So September is the month for safety OSHA compliance training, and everybody gets it. So this is pretty complicated because now everybody has to do it at once. Everybody has to find access to whatever area or equipment or hardware is used to take the training, all at one time. But if you're able to auto renew people on their actual anniversary date, which is how Exonify can be set up, it can do options to be able to do it all on the same date, or you can have people do it on their own individual, which is much easier on everybody. But the managers really need to be able to have a dashboard of some sort. So I'm showing you here the dashboard of Exonify for managers. And it shows people who are due certification within the next 30 days. And that's the box there off to the right. And then you have people who are overdue. So if they didn't get completed from your last month, this is showing those 23 people that are overdue certification. So obviously they're an even bigger priority to make sure you talk to them, and like we talked about earlier, tell them why it's important. Make sure that they're not having trouble with accessing the training. Maybe it's not always that they didn't want to do it. So asking questions, but this is a quick view. That's really all managers want. It's not super complicated for managers. They just want to know who's out there, who needs to get things done, an easy way for me to manage it. So if you don't have a clean dashboard like this, you have to figure out some way to be able to give them that clean information, even if it's in an Excel spreadsheet or however you're able to do it. So I think we're about at that time. So Chris, can you wrap things up for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we kind of do begin to wrap this up, right? Evan and I wanted to provide a summary of kind of what we've detailed today. So, I think one of the biggest takeaways that hopefully you can, remember from this breakout session is that communication is key. So instead of, everybody rolling their eyes about compliance, right? Ensure there's an open dialogue on the why. Why is this important, right? Why is it important to the employee or to their team, not to the business, right? Be upfront and honest with employees, right? Why it matters. I guess I get a little tired of why at this point, but it's an important aspect to really focus in. Is that people just want to know for a very specific reason, why they need to be taking certain levels of training. Look, hey, and sometimes there's circumstances where you have to do it. I'll say it, the old school way, right? Maybe a regulator, right? If I can get the word out, may require employees to do this very, exact or specific course in a set amount of time. It's still part of it, right? But at the end of the day, is letting them know the necessity of, or the, being upfront and honest about the why just creates a better level set. And this may sound simple, right? But thank them for their time and effort, right? Not only are you protecting their business, right? You're protecting the employee, and thank them for going through, their time and effort in taking the training. So that's the communication part. Evan talked about, the level of content, right? Understanding what content needs to be and how it should be very focused. Too much information is crammed into learning modules today. We have a day long of PowerPoint presentation, and that doesn't allow information to stick, right? So that's one thing, right? Employees are going to forget, roughly 90% of that material, specifically in 30 days. Think about what they're actually going to forget when they're done that day or the next day. That's a lot to cram in one specific spot. I think one of the, and I'm going to have kind of a side smirk for this, right, is, SCORM modules, right? So SCORMs come a long ways. It looks and it's a lot prettier than it was in, past iterations, if you will. One of the biggest things I noticed is that they're still way too long. As employees need to scroll through, right? As you kind of saw in the video, right? That character just going click, 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 right? The same thing's going to happen with these SCORE modules if they're super long, and being able to splice through it. Be concise in them, right? Again, Evan talked about focusing content, be very relevant in what it should be done, or so what should be conveyed. Because a lot of time, even from a law or regulatory point of view, is that maybe you need this much, right? But a lot of time content is that much. And, kind of filtering out some of the fluff, because maybe it can be handled in just a few questions versus watching a long video or going through a long PDF or a SCORM module or through a SCORM. Let's see. Make sure that's rooted in brain science. That's probably one of the other things too. We didn't talk a lot about that in our session today, but we all remember best by remembering answers to questions, spacing it out over time, retrieving material as memory degrades, and measuring confidence. And you've probably heard a few different notations on how important confidence is as we go through. Our second last one here is continuous learning culture, right? Make it fun, make it engaging, things like the reward points, leaderboards, friendly competition, and it creates a culture where employees want to learn, right? Empower the employee. And finally, have it fit in the flow of work, right? So we talked about mobile handheld devices, tablets in the break room, right? Tablets are so reasonable, and there's mounting devices that you can fasten them in the room. Things things like the break room, I should say. Point of sale systems. We even have a customer here at Exotify who has a mounted device, so it's kind of a tablet in a forklift. Right, so you think about in the flow of work, the forklift operator, right? So between maybe a truck backing in or taking off before the next load comes in, he does his daily training up on a mounted pad, directly in the forklift itself. We even have a very large grocery retailer that has implemented access on digital scales in the bakery. So again, back to that ease of flow, ease of access that's fitting in the employee's workday is an important part. And really, when we think about that easy access, it has to be there for modernizing our frontline workers. So, as we wrap up, and I wanted to say thank you to all of you. Evan and I take a lot of pride in being able to share our thoughts and our expertise with everyone. I hope that you found the session very valuable, and I'll pass it over here to Evan to allow him to thank you as well too.
Thanks, Chris. It was great presenting with you today. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. Really appreciate it. If you would like to learn more about Exonify and compliance training, if you're an existing customer, contact your customer success manager. Or if you're new to Exonify, check out our website and enjoy the rest of Exonicom Live. Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.